7. The President discusses Flynn with FBI Director Comey. On February 14, 2017, the day after Flynn's resignation, the President had lunch at the White House with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. According to Christie, at one point during the lunch, the President said, "Now that we fired Flynn, the Russia thing is over." Christie laughed and responded, "No way." He said, "This Russia thing is far from over, and we'll be here on Valentine's Day 2018 talking about this." The President said, "What do you mean? Flynn met with the Russians. That was the problem. I fired Flynn. It's over." Christie recalled responding that based on his experience both as a prosecutor and as someone who had been investigated, firing Flynn would not end the investigation. Christie said that there was no way to make an investigation shorter, but a lot of ways to make it longer. The President asked Christie what he meant, and Christie told the President not to talk about the investigation, even if he was frustrated at times. Christie also told the President that he would never be able to get rid of Flynn, like gum on the bottom of your shoe. Towards the end of the lunch, the President brought up Comey and asked if Christie was still friendly with him. Christie said he was. The President told Christie to call Comey and tell him that the President really likes him. Tell him he's part of the team. At the end of the lunch, the President repeated his request that Christie reach out to Comey. Christie had no intention of complying with the President's request that he contact Comey. He thought the President's request was nonsensical, and Christie did not want to put Comey in the position of having to receive such a phone call. Christie thought it would have been uncomfortable to pass on that message. At 4 p.m. that afternoon, the President met with Comey, Sessions, and other officials for a Homeland Security briefing. At the end of the briefing, the President dismissed the other attendees and stated that he wanted to speak to Comey alone. Sessions and Senior Advisor to the President, Jared Kushner, remained in the Oval Office as other participants left, but the President excused them, repeating that he wanted to speak only with Comey. At some point, after others had left the Oval Office, Priebus opened the door, but the President sent him away. According to Comey's account of the meeting, once they were alone, the President began the conversation by saying, "I want to talk about Mike Flynn." The President stated that Flynn had not done anything wrong in speaking with the Russians, but had to be terminated because he had misled the Vice President. The conversation turned to the topic of leaks of classified information, but the President returned to Flynn saying, "He is a good guy and has been through a lot." The President stated, "I hope you can find your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go." Comey agreed that Flynn is a good guy, but did not commit to ending the investigation of Flynn. Comey testified under oath that he took the President's statement as a direction because of the President's position and the circumstances of the one-on-one meeting. Shortly after meeting with the President, Comey began drafting a memorandum documenting their conversation. Comey also met with his senior leadership team to discuss the President's request, and they agreed not to inform FBI officials working on the Flynn case of the President's statements, so the officials would not be influenced by the request. Comey also asked for a meeting with Sessions and requested that Sessions not leave Comey alone with the President again. 8. The media raises questions about the President's delay in terminating Flynn. After Flynn was forced to resign, the press raised questions about why the President waited more than 2 weeks after the DOJ notification to remove Flynn, and whether the President had known about Flynn's contacts with Kislyak before the DOJ notification. The press also continued to raise questions about connections between Russia and the President's campaign. On February 15, 2017, the President told reporters, "General Flynn is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media." On February 16, 2017, the President held a press conference and said that he removed Flynn because Flynn didn't tell the Vice President of the United States the facts, and then he didn't remember. And that just wasn't acceptable to me. The President said he did not direct Flynn to discuss sanctions with Kislyak, but it certainly wouldn't have been okay with me if he did. I would have directed him to do it if I thought he wasn't doing it. I didn't direct him, but I would have directed him because that's his job. In listing the reasons for terminating Flynn, the President did not say that Flynn had lied to him. The president also denied having any connection to Russia, stating, "I have nothing to do with Russia. I told you. I have no deals there. I have no anything." The president also said he had nothing to do with WikiLeaks' publication of information hacked from the Clinton campaign. 9. The president attempts to have KT McFarland create a witness statement denying that he directed Flynn's discussions with Kislyak. On February 22, 2017, Priebus and Bannon told McFarland that the president wanted her to resign as deputy national security advisor, but they suggested to her that the administration could make her the ambassador to Singapore. The next day, the president asked Priebus to have McFarland draft an internal email that would confirm that the president did not direct Flynn to call the Russian ambassador about sanctions. Priebus said he told the president he would direct McFarland to write such a letter if she were comfortable with it. Priebus called McFarland into his office to convey the president's request that she memorialize in writing that the president did not direct Flynn to talk to Kislyak. McFarland told Priebus she did not know whether the president had directed Flynn to talk to Kislyak about sanctions, and she declined to say yes or no to the request. Priebus understood that McFarland was not comfortable with the president's request, and he recommended that she talk to attorneys in the White House counsel's office. McFarland then reached out to Eisenberg. McFarland told him that she had been fired from her job as Deputy National Security Advisor and offered the ambassadorship in Singapore, but that the president and Priebus wanted a letter from her denying that the president directed Flynn to discuss sanctions with Kislyak. Eisenberg advised McFarland not to write the requested letter. As documented by McFarland in a contemporaneous memorandum for the record that she wrote because she was concerned by the president's request, Eisenberg thought the requested email and letter would be a bad idea. From my side, because the email would be awkward. Why would I be emailing Priebus to make a statement for the record? But it would also be a bad idea for the president because it looked as if my ambassadorial appointment was in some way a quid pro quo. Later that evening, Priebus stopped by McFarland's office and told her not to write the email and to forget he even mentioned it. Around the same time, the president asked Priebus to reach out to Flynn and let him know that the president still cared about him. Priebus called Flynn and said that he was checking in and that Flynn was an American hero. Priebus thought the president did not want Flynn saying bad things about him. On March 31st, 2017, following news that Flynn had offered to testify before the FBI and congressional investigators in exchange for immunity, the president tweeted, "Mike Flynn should ask for immunity in that this is a witch hunt, excuse for big election loss by media and Dems of historic proportion." In late March or early April, the president asked McFarland to pass a message to Flynn telling him the president felt bad for him and that he should stay strong.